All right, this is going to be, let's see, episode 8. Last time up, which I just recorded a little while ago, I did this. I created an end-to-end project that doesn't use nCrunch, so that's where our actual tests of the entire system will go, and those will be run less frequently than with the continuous testing tools. So further better implementation of Profile Searcher, I'm just kind of looking through this backlog to prioritize things in my own mind as I sort of feel like at the moment, because I don't have, any external pressure. Let me get this list of things I don't like down a little bit. So what did I mean by this? Cleanup, execute URL query. So this is all uncovered by unit tests. If I go here and I try to make this happen with a unit test, it's going to go out to GitHub. Let's see. But I can probably pull some of this out to make it as minimally untestable as possible. So, for instance, this is just setup. This is really the meat of the, well, I guess this too. So all of this here is the meat of what's untestable, but here I got some magic strings, and I have, just a basic instantiation here. This is, I looked at before, I could have conceivably narrowed the surface area, I guess, of what I was mocking. I could inject this HTTP client into this class, but without a heavyweight isolation framework in C#, the way you get mocking is by relying on things that implement interfaces or that are virtual. And as you scroll through this definition, there's a whole lot of stuff that's not virtual. The only thing I can really override here is this dispose and then this send async, which I don't think is what I am using. No, I'm doing a get async. And none of those get async methods are virtual, which means that I cannot use this lightweight mocking tool to mock them. Nor do I particularly want to. I'm not a big fan. That creates, when you do that sort of heavyweight isolation stuff, you can even, I think there's a tool that Telerik offers, the extended version of just mock, and I used to, years back, use this thing called, what was it, Moles? Yeah, Moles. That was an isolation framework, so you could mock the unmockable is how it was built. If you're a Java developer and some other languages, this sort of thing is easier. But here in C#, that's not real easy. And it requires sort of extensive setup to mock static variables, static methods, non-virtual methods, private methods. You can mock all those things if you want, but that gets pretty brittle. So anyway, I will get away from ranting on about this sort of stuff. And what I'm going to do is create a crap. I'm going to create new folder 1, GitHub Inquisitor tests. I'm going to get a little bit more of this under test as I do a refactor. So make this public, turn it into a test class. See there, last episode I was having all kinds of problems getting it to bring in a link and other stuff. That is the behavior I like. Control period and it just works. Okay, so GitHub Inquisitor. Oops. I think what I'd like to do is peel this stuff out of the execute query method, and I don't see any reason that that will be a problem for it to maintain the client as a class level field or property or whatever, and then we can result. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm just thinking. I guess that's what happens with live coding. Might get a little boring at times as you listen to me think. I will try my best to keep this somewhat entertaining. So when setting up, sorry, there goes my phone again. One of these, you know what, let me set that on the ground so it's not as much of a distraction. Hopefully you won't hear it. When setting up GitHub Inquisitor, let me, because I want to maybe do some tests of the constructor and a property, and there's not a lot of overhead. So when setting up to query GitHub, GitHub Inquisitor should. See, I work fairly hard to make the name of the test class in conjunction with the name of the test method read like a sentence. When setting up to query GitHub, GitHub Inquisitor should. Let's see. Oops. Every now and then that injects a return type for some reason. So what should it do? I need a failing test here. And I want to make some changes to pull this stuff out and maybe pull these guys out into constants. I could do that as a refactoring, but because I've gone away from having ncrunch run the end-to-end tests, I no longer have coverage here. So let me should default to an HTTP client with a user agent request header. So I don't know exactly how to test for that, but let's figure it out. The target is going to be new GitHub Inquisitor. I'm not going to... Did I make this protected or internal? No, that's not the problem. So what is the problem? Am I giving it the wrong name? GitHub Inquisitor. Inquisitor. Oh, so the actual name of the classes. So that's why I spend so much time on it, because silly as that sounds, I definitely prefer to, fix the spelling. Oh, and this guy's spelled wrong too. Inquisitor. So does that break anything? No. Crisis averted. Okay, so it's a new GitHub Inquisitor, and I want to assert or equal string. What was that? User agent is what I expect, and target client dot. Okay, so that doesn't exist. Declare property. So I'm going to take advantage of this as one of the new C#6 features. I'm probably overusing this a little bit just to get a feel for it. And it's going to be a new HTTP client. And you don't like that, do you? Oh, because... Yep. And... type that is not referenced. You must add system.net.http. Okay, fine. That's actually a much more helpful feedback message than it used to give. I used to have to like Google this stuff. Why can't I find this? Client dot. Might have to. Still a problem? You must add system.net.http. I could have sworn. Oh, .http. I jumped the gun a little bit. System.net.http. So let's add that. And delete that, because I don't really believe in keeping extra things around that I might not need. Okay. Default request headers. Okay, so I added a default request header. And this is a HTTP client. It's a HTTP request headers. Yuck. Okay. So here in the constructor, then, what I'm going to do is say client dot. Oops. No, I can make this pass in more efficient fashion. Now I can trim down this method, replace this, and everything should go green and everyone should be happy. But let's just make sure that the end-to-end tests work. So does everything work still? Yeah, the Chicago search going out to GitHub still works, so I haven't broken anything. Now let's do a bit of refactoring. This is duplication here and I don't like it, so actually let me maybe tackle that in one fell swoop. It's not awesome, but I can refactor it later. To an HTTP client with user agent set to. Oh boy. How do I describe this? So var target equals new GitHub Inquisitor. Here's my expected, and this is going to be target.client.default request headers.first.value. And this should pass. Or it should not compile, whatever. Oh, IEnumerable. That's interesting. So I guess you can set a number of them up that way. Oh, goodness. What's the problem? Expected. What? Value dot. So it's an enumeration of strings. Let's do this. Get it compiling. use nCrunch here to do my debugging. So I'm expecting the values. So I'm expecting one value, and in reality, there are two. Interesting. I guess I don't need that type parameter for this interim assert. So the first one is Mozilla 4.0. Interesting. What's the second one? The second one, I wonder how it knows and why it breaks these things apart as tokens. Maybe it's a space. No, goodness, I don't know. That's kind of interesting. So what is actually happening here is that we're going to have to say values. Okay, var total. What is this even called again? Total header value is going to be string.join. And we need a separator. Gosh. Looking for the sort of cheap and easy way to do that. I always upvote people that just like ask the same question as me. Items.aggregate ij. So the delimiter is a comma. That's an interesting concept. So we've got this collection of strings called items. So instead, let's do this. And what's he saying here? Oops. Got the list. We want to do request header values dot aggregate. I keep doing that. Oh, that's interesting. I plus delimiter. I wonder if, let me just try it without this. I wonder where that delimiter comes in. Cannot be applied to key value. Oh, so it's, right. Now, yeah, you can apply it. So this is going to return, I would think, a string. Value equals. Let's see. Object? Come on. Oh. Default request headers. So is this now a string? Yes. And we're going to say that value, oops, not green, so what happens instead? Oh, let's do this. Look at that. All right, well, we've baked all kinds of nastiness in here. So it's passing, but goodness. Let's first of all request header values. Target. All right, well, at the very least, I'm going to clean up this class a little. Private GitHub Inquisitor target. I get this line of code out. And say target equals new GitHub Inquisitor, which will let me get rid of this stuff. Expected. So what is this thing called? We're going to call this default to an HTTP client with a user agent request header. Request header key. All right, so this is still a 2-line test, but it's broken up to be more readable. And do I like this name? I'm going to call it all request header values for key. I wonder if I can do this. Seems like I should be able to. This is kind of like a dictionary, right? Element add. Let's go to the definition here. So it's an HTTP client. Default request headers. Inherits from HTTP headers, which is a key value. It's a series of key value pairs of string. Goodness. So key value pair dot keys. No? Default request headers. Well, I'm kind of tilting at windmills here and getting along on time, so it's the first one. This could prove a little bit brittle, but so all request header values, all request header values, concatenated. Okay, now the one thing I want to do is get rid of the duplication in the form of these magic strings. Whoops. Request header. So what are we doing here? We're going to add a default request header. Oops. So let me go here and say we're going to public static string. We want to add the user agent request header. So user agent key equals user agent public static read only string user agent value equals this thing. I guess I could have done a refactoring using CodeRush, but I will say user agent value. And that's still green. User agent key gets us back to green. and GitHub inquisitor.user agent value. GitHub inquisitor.user agent key. All right. I am feeling okay about this. We've got a little bit more coverage here, and I'm going to call it for this episode since it's pretty long. I think there's enough to do a quick commit and say added some coverage around GitHub Inquisitor. Commit that. And I'm just defaulting to pushing it up to GitHub every time, so I will do that. And see you next time.